Today, our guest is Victoria Salomon, and we are talking about posture, alignment, and what it means for health and wellness. It's such an important topic, and I think so important for our audience interested in spirituality and wellness. Victoria, just take us back on where your journey started.
Wow. Well, first of all, Reno, thank you for having me here. Uh, where did my journey start? Really through having grown up in a family full of disease, both emotionally and physically. Um, Incredible, very, very challenging processes where bodies basically couldn't survive, if I'm quite honest with you. Trigger warning here, actually, but my father and both his parents took their own lives, and they had, especially my father, had been through many processes to try, master being in his body, and it never worked. And so I think by the time I came to the way that I work, it was because no one had shown me a suitable way to live in the body and feel aligned and comfortable. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I just knew I had to find something different. You know, literally, how do we align ourselves every step we take to function in a way where the body feels strong, mobile, and light to live in rather than dark, So we take something really that's very physical and structural. But the word emotion, energy and motion is something that I came to really work with, basically.
So many people seem to be out of alignment and not feeling their bodies. And your whole work is focused on bone structure and getting back into feeling your body, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes. So my foundational kind of signature program is called Get Into Your Body. So what I learned, I should say I have a degree in advanced clinical and sports massage. I'm a systematic kinesiologist. I've worked with certain kind of energy protocols in the body as well for energy work. But what I became aware of was that it's the bones. The bones are the internal scaffolding of the body. Without our bones, we would be a pile of mush. It's that, it's that simple. Whether you're working with energy or with all the muscular system or all the myofascial system, or even, as we've talked about, if you're doing Qigong or Tai Chi or all of those different arts or other different sports, there was a real misunderstanding from my perspective that the strongest things in the body are your bones, and that the bones were given to the osteos, to the chiros, to the doctors, and even, within yoga or any other movement therapy, no one was really working with the core of these fulcrums inside our body, which are our bones. And in our feet, we have 26 bones and 33 joints. In our body, we have 220 bones, 350 joints, and that every joint is a hinge. It's where at least two bones meet, possibly more. And that there is, if you think of two stones in the olden days that create fire, create that spark. And it became very, very clear to me through my own journey. I mean, in terms of the actual biomechanics and the methodology I created, it really was, there was a point where I was in a room with, sports people who were simply there to sport Olympic coaches who were there to learn how to train their sports people to get gold medals, right? They weren't looking at health and healing, they were looking at performance. And I was in there with my history of body work and hands on. And what I got in my own body was whoa, because we were working with these biomechanics and we were working up from the feet. Literally, what does every bone do in relationship to every other bone? What is the movement it's designed to do? In 3D. backwards and forwards, which is sagittal plane, up and down like a seesaw, which is frontal plane, and rotating, which is transverse plane, and beginning to realize that every muscle in your body is attached to at least two joints. And those joints, a bit like when you hold a towel and you wring it, to release the water, two joints are doing that with every single muscle in your body. And in most people, those joints are at least not moving in 3D, possibly moving in 2D, and they're not moving in correct timing with each other. And we come in with this philosophy of we treat the forest, not the tree. So, for example, if you have an injury, be it because of a kind of lockdown emotionally, when we're scared or we're in grief, or be it because you've had a physical injury, for the body and the joints, it actually makes no difference. Either are going to collapse the posture and create compensations. So the body, what I realized, was riddled with compensations. Now, ultra sport athletes are going to review those compensations to get them out the body to be able to perform and get their medals and win their races. They're not looking at those compensations in terms of the emotional body. And then when we're looking at body workers, or when we're even looking, dare I say it, yoga, tai chi, qigong, from my perspective, all of those things have their place, but they're not actually identifying compensations and misalignments that are required, the alignments that are required for simply putting one foot in front of the other and walking. Okay, so the way we walk, that 0.6 seconds to take one footstep, and within that footstep, there are actually 6 different alignments. If we were to simplify it, let's say 6 different alignments, kind of designs that the body wants to be able to access. So whereas if we look at yoga, we're looking at asanas, which, of these geometric shapes to access whatever energy experience. Or if we're looking at tai chi and qigong, we're looking at energy movement, we're looking at working, with different systems in the body. But nowhere within that was, how is your body actually designed to walk? Very simply, right? To get from A to B. What are the mechanics of the direction of every bone and joint in your body? So the sports people obviously are going for this because they want to win their races, right? They want those medals. But no one, from what I've seen, and more and more people who do know. It's funny, I'm here in LA at the moment with a guy who's been working with the body for years, and he's like, he's done the program, and it blew him away. He's 78, and he's like, Victoria, I can tell you, no one is doing this. And basically what I did, I was like, okay, guys, yes, we know there's all these beautiful healing arts. We know there's a way of working with the body and energy, but can we just teach people how to walk? Very simply.
Yeah.
It's biomechanics.
Great point. You just
Yeah.
you just earlier mentioned the emotional body. Just take us on this connection between posture alignment and what it means for mental health. I just had a look at some statistics, and it's astounding. The whole skeletal issue, back pain plays a role in absenteeism, for instance, at the workplace.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's heartbreaking, to be honest, because the simplicity of what I teach, people are, even doctors, I've had doctors cry who've trained with me because it's so ridiculous how simple what I teach is, and that it's not taught. So very, very simply, the analogy I use, there are 2 analogies. The first is a table, okay? If a table rocks, so we've got instability, where do we go to sort that instability out? We don't hold on to the top of the table. Yeah, and we don't hold on to everything to the table. We go to the feet. Agreed. We go to the relationship of the feet of that table with the earth. Okay, so we're working on that foundation. And then if that still wasn't working, we would move up. Okay, so the emotional stability, I want people to understand the body is the same. When there is instability, it starts in the feet. It starts in the mechanics of the feet. So already we've got this because the 26 bones, and it sounds complicated, but it's so not when you understand how to do it. The 26 bones, you just check that out. So anyone with an emotional instability, if you look at the way they walk, you're going to see that what we have, which is this foot tripod in both feet, there are these 3 points, and then the mechanics between what is a flat foot and an arch foot. So a flat foot is used for suspension. It's used for taking the whole body on that foot so we can lift the opposite one forward. An arch foot is for propulsion, which is meant to push us forward. Now, this is where it all goes wrong. Most people cannot access propulsion in their mechanics. Okay, so propulsion is biomechanically what we call supination, creates the arch, and the foot should simply push us forward effortlessly. This isn't happening. Instead, what is happening is that most people are lifting their body weight forward from their hip joints, trying to support their upper body weight. This is keeping them stuck in what we call an anterior tilt, and that's only in one plane, sagittal plane of movement. And this keeps the parasympathetic nervous system dysregulated.
Is this why so many elderly people have to have hip replacements?
Oh, 100%. Yes. I mean, it's insanity that the place that I come from with this knowledge is it's very alarming. You know, people who come to train with me are training with me because as they feel it in their body, but also as they start using it with their clients, it's face palming stuff. Because this is not, it's like the answer you've been looking for is within you. Yes. Could we just pull it all back from all these healing arts for a moment? This should not be a healing art. This is education. This is simple education of how to live in your body. So yes, so when you're stuck in an anterior tilt, the hip joint in 3D, it's stuck in kind of internal rotation, which keeps it pushing against the fossa and the kind of socket it's in. Whereas when you get the correct mechanics in the feet, you can posteriorly tilt. And the evidence is again and again and again and again that then people's emotional body is supported from the feet up, and you'll start to hear the same words. I feel safe. I feel supported. My glutes have switched on. My quads have switched on. You're not in a gym anymore trying to switch things on. Get the mechanics right. And we say joints act, muscles react. Everything effortlessly switches on. So you get this beautiful experience of enlightenment not being this destination that you want to get to, enlightenment being the experience of your bones and joints in every step you take. An analogy of that is imagine a door. If the muscle is the door, yeah, then what allows that door to move effortlessly is the hinge. So if the hinge isn't working, it's huge, isn't it? We all know what it's like when you're trying to pull a door open. Whereas when the hinge works, it's effortless. So that is enlightenment. And I don't, every step we take living in this body, when you get the physical and emotional working together, from my perspective, that's where spirituality meets. So a lot of people, and I know because you're a hiker, when they walk for a long time, eventually their body will get the hang of what works. But dare I say it, we can fast track that in minutes. It's like, it's the same with meditation. People will say to me, oh, well, if I meditate for 7 hours, I can get rid of a migraine. And I'm like, can we just sort out the relationship between your skull and your shoulder blades and your rib cage with a good foundation, and we'll get you that in 7 minutes. It's more the quickness. Again, if you think of trying to drag that door open with both hands rather than just touching it with your little finger, because the hinge works. Okay, so emotionally you can imagine that then, rather than it being an effort heaving around this body, what we have is this extraordinary propulsion and mobility in 3D where all the joints work correctly. and we rearrange the way center of mass works. So a lot of people are holding all the gravity and the weight of their body in their upper body because the lower body cannot actually support it. Whereas once we get the mechanics from the feet upwards working, the center of mass just effortlessly sinks down. So again, emotionally, we've also got this sympathetic nervous system coming up through the spine. So that whole kind of trying to keep you upright. And this is the big deal in the body. That what is happening is that the energy should be traveling up and down at the same time. I know you know that because of what you do, right? But what is happening for a lot of people, they're using the superficial muscle layers to hold their body up, which is stopping energy from sinking down. It's stopping
Yeah.
gravity. I'm not talking
Yeah.
about mystical energy. I'm talking about the fact of gravity in the center of mass. So literally the muscles are holding it up in the upper body, which is then compressing on organs, compressing the nervous systems, compressing the sympathetic, instead of the bones being aligned and all that gravity, the weight being able to sink down, and the energy is simply left there to work with creativity, to work with, giving the organs all the energy and space they need
Yeah.
rather than compressing
Yeah.
around them.
I know from my work that stress is a huge factor. If
Yeah.
all the stresses, the emotional stresses are locked into your upper body, of course you won't feel your feet. Now, my question is, how do you change physical habits that have been ingrained for decades in some cases,
Yes. Yeah.
often going back to childhood?
Yeah. And I would say not just that, they're going back to the childhoods of your parents and your grandparents, because how often have you heard, oh, my mother had this, my father had this, my grandparents had this. So people are actually like blueprints of the generations that came before. It runs in the family. Yeah, we all know we've heard that. Interesting term. It runs in the family. Literally, every step people take, they are running the same posture, the same emotion and beliefs. It's very simple. I mean, the program we created is, you know, it's extraordinary, and it's a 7-week program. And you just learn to realign every joint in your body. Week 1, you realign the biomechanics of your feet. Week 2, you realign the biomechanics of your pelvis. Week 3, the spine. Week 4, the rib cage. Week 5, the shoulders. Week 6, the neck, which is basically simply the relationship of the alignment of the skull and the rib cage. Week 7, we come into the jaw. And by default, if you go in and you realign all those joints, and we teach people to self-assess, we're not doing it for you, you're doing it for you. We're just observing you doing, you have everything in video, audio, written, and images. It's on an app, it's on the computer, so it's an educational process. And then people turn up into a one-to-one session on Zoom or possibly face-to-face if they've got a local practitioner. But we can do all of this with people simply observing them on a screen. And we teach them. We get them to orientate themselves in a clock face, 12 o'clock in front of them, 6 o'clock behind them. Right is 3 o'clock, left is 9 o'clock. And we just get them moving their joints. And they go, oh, I can move this more left than right. Yeah, great. Let's
Yeah.
center that joint at 12 o'clock, shall we? And then, eyes on the horizon. And we teach it so a 10-year-old can understand it and a 90-year-old can do it. And if you are anything in between, we've got you, so it's that simple.
Let's go to someone who is listening to this today and
Yeah.
asking herself, himself, well, what is the first step I can do to create more body awareness, more awareness of my posture? Where can I start?
So the first thing is to understand there's something you don't know yet. There's a secret inside your body. So first you've got to get your head around reclaiming that there is a whole system that you can learn to use. because for a lot of people that's beyond them, because the philosophies or the therapies or the treatments out there do not give people power over their bones. They actually make them like some irrelevant system. So I do have to say the first thing is the paradigm, to get your head around being open to there being something you could learn that you don't know yet. Because the words I always say to people is, are you ready? Are you ready? Because even though it's simple, is it easy? A lot of that depends on the cause of it. So in terms of getting in touch with it, you have to make a decision. Everything starts with a decision that you want to learn your body. And then once you learn your body, once you've made that decision and you have that intention to create that attention going inwards with some guidance, we're like driving instructors. We're not going to drive your car. We're going to teach you how to drive it. Then you start the program, which is literally, very simply, as I say, it's a very simple program, starting with your feet. Where are the second toes in your feet facing on a clock face? What is the distance between your heel bones? Yeah. What direction are you walking in? For most people, very, very often, their feet are going in completely the wrong directions when they walk.
I know some people who insist on walking barefoot because they say, well, what an experience. I can feel the earth. I can feel my body when I walk barefoot. Of course,
Yes.
when we wear shoes, and I can't do it because my feet are so sensitive. And here in Mallorca in Spain, we have so many rocks and rough terrain. It's very difficult to
Yeah.
walk barefoot.
Yes.
But I mean, I really enjoy walking barefoot on the beach, for instance. It's lovely feeling the water
Yes.
on your feet and feeling the sand under your feet. And I know from acupuncture, there are so many points on the feet that are related
Yeah.
to other parts in your body organs, and so forth. So I
Yeah.
always say, well, try walking barefoot. I think personally is a good way of creating body awareness. And
Mhm.
you just mentioned your first week, feet, feeling your feet.
Feet.
So take us through your program. Of course, you go and travel to many parts of the world teaching body awareness, and you're in the U United States at the moment, and we met on a flight from the UK to Palma, and uh, most of your courses are online. Am I correct?
Yes. So it's really, we have to get out away from anything that can sabotage people's learning. And one of them is, this isn't a retreat you need to go on. This isn't something where you need to take time out of your day. It's a program where we say 10 minutes, 5 days a week. You can learn this 10 minutes, 5 days a week, because add to that a one-to-one session with a practitioner. But in terms of self-learning, that you have it drops between 5 and 7 practices a week. This is level one, over 7 weeks. So we make it incredibly simple. And it really is, we want you to look in the mirror and start to take a good look at yourself and start to take a good look at what different parts of your body are doing. And I must say, the whole shoe thing and barefoot thing is really interesting, because people ask me this all the time. Oh, Victoria, what do you think? And I'm like, you know what, guys? The reason you love all of that so much, if people love that, is because they get sensation on the outside of their feet. Yeah, the connection with the external environment. But I'm actually not interested in that. I'm interested in the relationship inside your feet that those sensations and nerves are having with your bones. And that actually, when you get that relationship, the internal power and strength, because let's say the earth is like stone. Yeah, it's solid, but you have that inside you. You can actually create that sensation every step you take. So we start to bring people into that sensation of connecting and activating that feeling every step they take. But the point is, they can do this in the comfort of their own room, in their bedroom, their living room. All they need is a screen. Some of it is pre-recorded and some of it is live, both with a one-to-one session, and also people are put in a small group, because we believe in bringing people together in safe container groups where they also then see what other people are doing, because that's really helpful. They start to see it's not just them, and they start to see these wake up moments. So we're big on community as well. The program is very much about, sometimes we can't see stuff in ourselves, but we can see it in others, can't we? So that's really important. So in terms of the program, it's constant self-awareness, and it's constant bringing people. We say our promise to you is you will leave no bone unturned.
So, watching people change as they go through your program, what do you see change in their whole life and their whole
Oh,
outlook on life?
it's extraordinary. I mean, we can read, a lot of the evidence I'm creating, and that's one of the reasons I'm in the US. I'm starting to look at who can come in, who can do the research with me. But what we know for a fact is that if someone is a personality of a controller, a perfectionist, an achiever, a helper, an anxious person, we can read that predictably in their gait, in the gait being the way they walk. Right. So when we realign their gait and we stack everything up and we get everything moving in good balance and alignment, their personality transforms. Does it mean they can't fall into an extreme version of the personality? Of course it can, but then they have the tools to bring themselves back into alignment. So we have this extraordinary experience for people where, as they realign their bones, they start going, Victoria, something really strange is happening. Like, they'll notice things change in their relationships. They'll notice their thoughts change, their feelings change, their actions change, their behaviors change, their emotions, and literally their personality. And as their personality changes, the personal reality changes. So there is no separation. Every step we take, the alignment we have, be it in collapse, be it head forward, rushing forward, be it like we're walking on a tightrope, whatever it is, when we think of those metaphors of how we experience the feeling of living, of how we have a relationship with the world. Once you align the bones, the nervous system is also rewired, which sends a kind of different internal pharmacy of chemicals to the brain, which then creates different thoughts. So we're working very much with the relationship of those systems. So, and literally there are moments where we see it. You see the lights go on in a human. They will suddenly get a support internally, which they have never felt before. They've never felt it. And those moments are what keep me going, because in launching and creating a new methodology, you're up against everyone who thinks they know everything about everything. And yet those moments that we see, I have never seen those moments in a human or in myself, in anything else I've done. And that is the bones speaking. That is the bones going, thank God you finally let us do what we're here to do for you, because someone is moving them and aligning them. And there is nothing like it. I mean, seriously, the feeling of that is simply joy and lightness.
Yeah.
It, you
Yeah.
know,
It's such a great message, which so resonates with the work I do, because it goes back to many thousands of years when ancient Tai Chi teachers and yoga and Qigong teachers, they always had this core message of relaxing your body, letting go of
yeah,
those stresses, aligning the body, feeling that
yeah,
connection between heaven and earth, and then
yes,
that light opens where you
yes,
realize that you feel that connection to that bigger wholeness,
yeah, yeah,
that is spirit, and I find, unfortunately, so much of our world is disconnected from that spirit. Just by looking at body posture and seeing how the world impacts all of us in some or other way. And what you just mentioned is such an important message. Taking that one step back, realigning, and not falling into that trap of being triggered by emotions.
I would just say that from my perspective, the reason what's happened is if we look at yoga, if we look at Tai Chi and Qigong, and it literally makes me want to weep. There is an element of ego, an element of superficial, and I'm not making anyone wrong, but superficial muscle holding. Because what people have done, they have looked at teachers and they've looked at the external visual alignment, and they've tried to replicate this using their muscles instead of understanding that the hinges of those movements, the cores of those movements, would have been biomechanical engagement of joints and bones. So people are superficially holding these postures and these movements in terms of, does it look right? Does it look right? It's all about what it looks like instead of having been taught. But, I never, ever went into a yoga class or a qigong class or a Pilates class where they talked about engagement of joints and bones to the minutiae of millimeters. It was all kind of the energy, the muscles, the connective tissue. And so I do believe that the core structure of what those incredible teachers would have intuited and felt in their bodies, that probably through word of mouth was very gently discussed, has been lost through what people observed and thought they saw. And they didn't understand the core hinges of what was creating.
I would concur that a lot of these core teachings have gotten lost on the way,
Yeah.
especially if
Yeah.
you try and replicate a posture that you see on a video, which
Yes.
which
Yeah.
doesn't work.
Exactly, which is why all of our courses are interactive. There's always a live person. It's like watch the video, yeah, understand the language, get an idea of the choreography, but then we'll come in and we are like, I'm a laser. I know what your head's doing. I know what your shoulder blades are doing. I know if your nose and your belly button and your breastbone are not aligned. I know if your feet and bones and what we call the talus bone, which is the driver of the bus at the front of the ankle, I'm looking at the joints. So we actually say that the most profound movements you can barely see because it's all going on underneath. They are so minute, and people will feel like they are doing a massive workout, and to look at it looks like they're practically doing nothing. So we're coming away from these big power movements, these embodied warrior poses. No, that is actually, from my perspective, if we're looking at the language of the muscles and the bones and the fascia, they are ego movements. They are trying to say something. They are, look at me, look at my power, look at this, right? That's what they're doing. And it's rubbish, but a lot of the time, because that is muscles and connective tissue bypassing the mechanics of the joints and the bones. Whereas we get people actually feeling that emotion. My job is to get a woman who's being abused by her boss to be able to walk into a room and stand there with such engagement and power that the boss just has to get back into a mutual alignment of power. And I can tell you, she's not standing there in a yoga warrior pose. She is standing there with the mechanics of the bones in her feet, that she's learned to stand on her own 2 feet correctly. She's learned to engage those joints. So the pelvis is like not fusing through life threat or anything. And the power, the simple stance of standing on her own 2 feet in alignment will make the energy and the mechanics of the person who might have been trying to overpower completely neutralize. That is the true power of the bones.
There's actually studies on this that people in a slouching position are those that are more frequently bullied than those
Yeah.
who have a really good
Yeah.
a firm body posture,
And I would turn
aligned
that on
body
its
posture.
head.
Yeah,
Yeah. I would say the reason they are slouching is because they have been bullied. Because the moment of the bullying, if you look at the mechanics, there is an energy that's throwing from, let's say, if we're going to get energy, from someone's solar plexus, but they're sympathetic, that kind of fight right into the life threat of the belly of the person they're going at, and the collapse happens. So then exactly the mechanics of that are stuck in the body. There's what I call a physiological energetic amnesia, and people don't know what's happening to them. And what I say is that I didn't build this in a yoga studio. I built this methodology after years of working with clients, but also because through realigning myself, I could not avoid the fact I was in a very codependent, very dysfunctional marriage, very dysfunctional, where there was an imbalance of power. And do I blame that man? No, I don't, because I was pre-wired for that. So the court cases, and it involved all kinds of very, very serious things. My job, talk about testing this out in a ring of fire. My job was to engage in a different posture whilst reversing out of this relationship. And of course, that individual didn't know what hit him, because when he'd met me, I'd already been programmed into collapse and into needing support, and into, because I couldn't do it internally. So bless him, he didn't know what hit him, because I'd actually been on this power journey of learning the body. So in court, when the attack came, because it's always the same pattern that's going to come from an imbalance of power, the attack came, but I didn't crumple because my posture was different. I knew how to keep those bones aligned. I knew how to regulate my parasympathetic. And at that moment, patterns change, So that's where the emotion and the epigenetic and the ancestral generational trauma and power of this methodology shows up, and
yeah,
then you can take that simply to
yeah,
the other end of the spectrum, which is someone strained their ankle and the body's got all kinds
yeah,
of
yeah,
compensations from that. But the compensations of relational interaction and the way that is working is a whole other area of our work, which for me is what drives me on, no matter what, no matter what.
yeah. Well, we could go on for hours, Victoria,
I know,
but
I know.
you have such an important message, and I think we touched on so many topics today, and I think your message and your work is so important during these times where
Yes,
we are
yes.
being pulled in so many different directions, where alignment is becoming more important, I think, than ever before. One last question is, how can people connect with
Well, hopefully you'll put some links
you? I will.
with this podcast. Yeah. So we have various ways people can connect. We have a WhatsApp group where people can immediately connect to drop in visitor sessions, because we know this is a new thing. So we invite people to actually come and experience connecting to their bones. We have our website. We obviously have programs so there's myself, I'm training practitioners as well. So people, yeah, either can work with me or with someone I've trained. And we invite you, whoever you are listening to this, if you're listening to this and you feel that calling, because that's what I call it. It's when, the bones start speaking and you get a sense of, I need to do this, or I want to know more. Come and connect with us. I also have a book. It's the workbook that goes with the level 1 process, but some people like to look at that first. And those are different ways, a lot depends on how people like to approach something. Some people are like, I want to do this now. Other people need layered information, don't they?
Yeah,
Does that work?
that works.
My team,
Okay,
we have automations basically
Victoria,
of information. Yeah.
one last message for our listeners who are maybe in a body pain, or maybe are looking at wanting to change body posture, realign with their bodies. What would you tell them?
Your bones the best friends you ever have. They are going to outlive your thinking mind and beating heart. They're going to outlive you. Learn how to use them. It is the most important gift and the most important health insurance you will ever, ever have access to. Learn them. It's an education you should have had. And, you know, my end goal is to get this into the education system so every child learns it. And I'm sorry that if you're in pain, this is perceived as treatment, because really it's an education you should have always had. So learn your bones 100%, how
Well,
to move them.
thank you so much for your time, Victoria.
So,